First of all, thanks to Arasta and the entire team to have developed the theme around design, architecture, and sustainability. I feel that very essential, not only for Kashmir, but also for the entire nation, and I think also many other countries across the globe. And I know how difficult it is, and therefore this special thanks to the team, how difficult it is to spare our time and to develop over months and organize over months the entire material that comes in. And I would like to thank also Tassavur Sahab for inviting me here and inviting, of course, other participants, and Mr. Akshay Kaul, who happens to be a friend, and very often in times of need, a person who sustained a dialogue with us and with my team. I'm not giving today a presentation which has a quantification and data, because I think data and quantifications fall into the realm of a very mechanist approach to planning and designing. I think quantification happens normally at a much later stage. I would rather dwell on the quality of the environment, the quality of the work that needs to be done. I migrated at the age of 3, so my memories are from the closest possible to the ground, to the earth, to the Angan, to the buildings of the state, to growing up gradually whenever we would move as a tourist into this city, into this state. I migrated with my parents to Bihar, Patna, then for about 25 years to Germany, then went back for a training to Gujarat for a few years, then came to Delhi. I'm mentioning this here to explain that at each of these stations, I transformed my outer body. If I'm in Kashmir, I may have worn as a child the Ferren. If I was in Germany, I may have taken a Parker, which would be from any of these big brands that we have now in India also. In Gujarat, I must have been in my dhoti or in my shorts. In Delhi, the climate is varying winter to summer, so one can use all of it together. I'm saying that because architecture is also about the external, covering your receptacle. I'm saying that also because there is something that gets changed, there's something that gets transformed, but at the same time there is something that remains, the internal. And I think the internal, the inner self, is the identity. Now the identity of a place, the identity is which we are looking for when we build in nature. If I take this paradigm or this experience as an insight into architecture, I see two diametrically opposite qualities. One is the quality that is time-bound. My dress is changed as I grew. And these time-bound qualities are human skills. We know exactly over the centuries, skills are changing. We know exactly that the techniques and the technology, as we are moving always into the future, you can't turn the clock backward. I think it's an illusion, whoever suggests that we can turn the clock backward. And the third thing, and that's very important, are materials. I went yesterday to the city, and Zoya was kind enough to take us around and explain the buildings and the periods. She showed us, now I should spell it, pronounce it rightly, Khan-Kahi. Khan-Kahi Shah-e Hamdan. I'm sorry for that, but Shah-e Hamdan. It's a timber construction. She showed us Badshah Tomb. It's a stone construction. Two different periods in the same city. And I'm sure all people here present and the public, the whole city, doesn't object to these buildings. One is timber, the other is in stone. Different period. Both are simultaneously existing in the city. Now, if I have to build today, what can I do? Will I take stone path? Will I take the timber path? So for me, that is not a debate. Because I think I would like to create a matrix that allows to look into the quality of these buildings as well in the quality of the non-building. There's a very interesting say by the Dalai Lama. He says, space is absence of form. Now, it's very interesting because yesterday at the steps of Kahi, thank you so much. You understand what I mean. So, at the steps, while inside, there were people praying. Back wall, next to the river side, there was a woman praying, and most probably in grief because she was crying. And this side, there was something else happening. Children were selling some small metal pieces, very colorful, very beautiful pieces. The sun was creating this beautiful space. There was no architecture there. It was just nothing. It was formless. Yet it was able to create a place for people, and a very active people, a public space. I feel that is architecture. Now, on the other side, here we have the time-bound quality, human skills, technique, technology, material. On the other side, we have timeless qualities. The timeless quality are those ones that transform us, that create deep memories in us. And I would state the sun is a timeless quality. Certainly, astronomers would say after a few millions we have no more sunlight and we don't have this and that. But I think that is not a human scale we are talking here about. The other thing is the climate, which is of course generated by the sun. The third thing is the human psyche. I was talking about the experience about the boy in the plane. I think the human psyche is so deep-rooted that it can be called timeless. Now, getting these two diametrically opposite together into architecture is a biggest challenge. I'm not claiming here that our work that I'm going to present is going to resolve it. But what I want to say is to not necessarily get carried away with that what you see. I think we should be equally looking at things that are invisible but have very strong presence in our lives. Now, in our office, we have tried to, and I have a very young team. We have a very small office, about 15, 20 people, varies always. We were trying to do through dialogue, and I think dialogue is a very interesting tool because it tries to deconstruct, it tries to question the stereotypes. That the dialogue is a tool for us to engage with our inner self, because the stereotypes that we carry, and we have many stereotypes. If I ask anybody here in the audience, what does your house look like? His first thing comes, the last memory he had of his house. It could be his neighbor's house, he envies. It could be a house on the TV. It could be some Bollywood actor's house, and so on and so forth. But it will never happen immediately unless he doesn't go into meditation to figure out what he really wants. So the dialogue for us is to develop criteria and a matrix for design, and to do a self-reflection. We have generated 3 ideas. We have filtered out of this dialogue, which is a very cumbersome process. We have filtered out 3 things. One is the archetype. I will dwell on that bit. The other one is the context. Now let me start with the archetype. The archetype is a position, to make it simpler, because it is generated by a German psychologist, C.G. Jung. It is to do with the collective unconsciousness. On right side, you see the step wells. This is captured in Gujarat. And the step well is not only a place where water is drawn, pulled, but it is a place of ceremony. It is a kund that allows community to come and exchange ideas, political nature, non-political nature, but it allows also a single person to do his kriyas. It allows a complete community to come together and listen to a performance. Why not? I think that the experience with Khan Kahi, Hamdam, was a similar experience. It was the collective that was active at that place. On the left side, we have context, full of prejudice. Most of the architects think that context is something that can be emulated quickly, instantly. If you build today in Delhi, in Rashtrapati Bhavan area, the Legends Delhi, as we call it, you will think of yellow sandstone, Dholpur sandstone, or the red Agra stone, and you come to conclusion that the building, whatever it looks, it belongs to the context because it selected a material. Of course, that's not the case. The context is much larger. The context is a complete ecosystem. The context are people who are working. The context is people who are living in the buildings, who are making the buildings, and so on and so forth. The third things that we have concluded in our matrix is material and construction. We feel material and construction a very essential part of the entire development of architecture because it gives life to the building. It does reflect the nature of the place, the context. It does also challenge naturally and expand the possibilities that new materials, skills are throwing at us. Let me take now, because I got so little time, to the context. This is a site in Haryana that we got many years back. Haryana towards the Aravallis, so we have little undulation. So there is already context. You see, there are a lot of possibilities. Now, if I look at the diagram, we have the first diagram. No, it's in the fields. Now, India has a lot of different topographies. We have the tropical forests, we have the fields, we have the mountains, we have the hills, we have gardens. So this is in the fields. So what we mapped first was initially the higher parts of the plain, and tried to figure out how the rainwater is going to move through this piece of land, and define then the possibilities of water harvesting, lake developments for a resort. This one is for a resort, for Vatika Resort. Now, the first step is trying to get the characteristics of the land and the idiosyncrasies of the land. The second one gives you the possibility how a structure can be placed within these areas. Certainly not into the waterways, but into the between the top level, which we have now with the brown dots and the square, reserved for special activities, while on an axial diagram, and the lower for the water, and right you can see already the initial placement of the cottages of the resort. As we move on, I think there is a very important exercise for all planners. We start with the forestation program. So the entire area that has a lot of water reserves created over a long period is more humid, more soft, can have gardens, agriculture, and this is the USP for this project, because what will you get in Haryana? You don't have beautiful mountains that you look at. There's not much, but you can create that if it is not there by sheer understanding the nature. In the middle you see already the synthesis between, or the overlap between the building and the forest. On the right side, then finally how we see the whole thing developing in future. Unfortunately, the project didn't pick up fully, and we were moved out of the project because the aesthetic that was governing the builder was not complying with our ideas. Now here you see some initial sketches, how we see the porosity that is possible within this arrangement between building and nature. The idea is not to make very heavy buildings, therefore these little dots, to let the landscape flow through it. We'll see that in other pictures as well. Next. Initial ideas on the building, taking clues from the local materials. The roof was supposed, this is the convention center there, which is a 3-story building. The roof was slate, then some screens against sun, and the lower, which was relating to the garden, more porous. The roof landscape, you can see the lower wall in exposed concrete. The roof is very undulated, a little glass box for seminar rooms. The cottages, next. Now this is in Kashmir, we are here. Some may have identified the place already. Now, very important to survey how the sunlight is moving, because we live in a mountainous area, and if you want to enjoy is sun bathing your entire space, then you should track the sun, you should track the winter winds, the summer winds. You have to track also the existing flora, fauna, which this diagram shows. Now, one reaction could have been that, and that's what we try to pursue, to respect the existing plantation of cherry trees and go for smaller building type, a typology with very small buildings, and keep the porosity. Shupian, one building on the way, right side below, shows how generally in fields and in the mountains, people are building with individual, very small, two-story pavilion-like buildings. So we try to emulate that. We have also the other morphology of houseboats that allow, and it's not everywhere in the world in the same way arranged. It's very peculiar to Srinagar that it is leaving so much of space in between and allowing that the nature still becomes a player and a part of this man-made intervention. This inspired us a lot for development of this resort. Next picture, please. I didn't find a picture from Srinagar, so I had to take and borrow it from Switzerland from one of my travels. And you see the porosity. The porosity is not only to look at, but if you look at, when I'm at the pedestrian view level, you see what porosity does. It creates in between spaces, spaces that can be inhabited, and places that can be made then, and entrances that can be defined, and the scale that can be negotiated in the way you would like to do. So no high density, but lot of nature in between. Now to materials, I was saying material and construction is very important subject for us. Kashmir has very good stone construction. We have very good stone masons. We have gabion wall systems that have been deployed for various slopes. The other material certainly is wood construction, which can nicely age and get the patina. We don't need to put paints and all. In fact, I was suggesting yesterday that one should remove the paint from Khan Khahi and get this beautiful timber that must be very ancient nesting below, more exposed. Next picture. We have the possibility of earth. Chitra had dwelled in good details, and I know her work. It's very fine. We have here material, earth as material. And we have, of course, our Kangdi and the use of cane. Next picture. The use here, I think this is a Tumbakner, if I'm not mistaken, and the use of clay for the entire culture. Now, if I overlap all that, what I surveyed, we get this kind of master plan, which leaves enough space in between for the cherry trees to further continue living. A view from the lower levels, you have the arrangement of the building very carefully selected that the view is not disturbed because it's overlooking the western side. So western side would be the setting sun at Dal Lake. So as a tourist resort, it would be desirable to have it. And at the same time, certainly to harness the southern light, we tried to do now the 3D renders, because the project is not picking up, 3D renders of how we see it. Next, 3D renders again. So the center type we tried to build within 3 months, doing the timber construction in such a fine way that it was quick, understandable by the carpenters. I must say, Kashmiri carpenters are exceptionally skilled and exceptionally care for detailing, care for joinery. Next. The model, we work a lot with large models, joinery models, to explain to our construction people, because the drawings are not always very readable. They don't understand very often the language. The drawing as a language is still very inhibiting people and the communication, so model is always better. Next. This was one unit that was built, and except for the waterproofing which came from Delhi, everything is local wood from the market. Next picture. This I will do very fast. It was a competition in Srinagar. SDA had launched it, so it's building in the garden, so I will let go this very fast. It is showing the quality that we are seeing. Now, another building that we recently completed in Satkol, that's ahead of Bhimtal in Uttarakhand, which tried to explore the possibility of large span. This challenge was only possible by using certain techniques of gluing the timber in a particular way. Now, very important in this placemaking was that we don't build on face where the Pakdandi or the entrance to the property is, but we built it and we convinced the client, and he had started earlier already with a civil engineer to build this. We don't build it right there so that it's convenient for him, but push the building down the hill and explore the hill as a part of your arrival area. And as very important, next picture. Very, very important to experience landscaping, being some drawings that we put across. The building is about 50 feet by 50 feet column free, and as I mentioned, it's a house. It's a house with 4 bedrooms. Some detail how the construction is made. It may be reminiscence of the bridge construction in Srinagar. So we have used 3 different timbers: the sal for the construction, very hard; the pine for the interiors; the tun, which is a red cedar, for the external cladding. We had a very bad team to work with, but and challenges that come with a bad team. But what is interesting, people are ready to help you out. People are ready to understand, and they enjoy challenges very often. So all these beams are about 1.5 feet, so about 450, made out of 3 planks glued together, spanning this large construction. The stone was locally used. We have carefully tried to do a drywall arrangement because mortar on the surfaces, I don't need to dwell too much into details, but mortar on the surfaces kills the beauty of a stone. So you would like to see it more of stone than of mortar. I know what PWD does in this country. They see finally no stone and they call it stonework or random rubble work, RRB or something like that. Next. This is how the building sits today. You see the Dolada range. So the building has gone and become a part of the entire surrounding. It disappears, and that was the intention. Next image. That's external cladding. We are letting it patinate, so it's becoming darker and darker, and almost black now today. Next picture. A view of a typical room inside, completely cladded, next in timber. A view of the interiors. The interiors are not done by us. The clients opted for doing it himself, which is very nice, I think. They have to live, after all, inside the space. You can see completely free hall. There's a little column there, which was during the construction, and they left it because they liked it. Next picture. I think the last picture. This is how it looks today. Thank you very much.